about your childhood home?
Okay. Um, Again, it was, fun growing up. It was good having so many of them around. And it wasn't just, my brothers and sisters who were around. That's the other thing. It was the cousins and uncles and aunts that was around. I mean, Claude was like a brother because he and Matt they were about a year apart and they used to hang out together all the time. So, having Claude around was, almost like having another brother. And that was great. Now, I remember going all the way back down south. I came up here, I guess, when I was, 5? 5, 6. And down south, we were on the farm. We had chickens, we had an outhouse, we had pigs and hogs and all of that. So, and we grew, a lot of things too. Matt used to do, a lot of plowing, even though I guess as young as he was. And where we lived, the house was right near the road. And the house was right near the road, and we grew some stuff right, between the house and the road. But we grew a lot of the stuff, in back, sugarcane and wheat and that kind of stuff, and cotton.
How many acres do you think it was about?
I don't know. When I think about it, it was probably, not more than about 3-4 acres, something like that. And the railroad was behind us. On the other side of the railroad is where Oscar lived. And I think in Aunt Sissy, you heard of Aunt Sissy, right?
Aunt Sissy, her real name being?
Little name being Aunt Sissy. But she was grandmother's sister. She was a Grimes.
Okay.
And her husband was Uncle Michael. I remember his name. They lived on that back on the other side of the railroad too, with Oscar. So we could go back there and visit and so on. And then others lived, I guess close by. But back then, we were doing horse and buggy. We went to town with a wagon with a mule or something pulling it. So it was way back. And then I think we ended up, somebody got a T-model Ford sometime in there, which wasn't a new thing, I guess, but for us, it was new.
Had to crank it up and everything?
Had to crank it up.
Wow.
Yeah, had to crank it up and then run and jump and keep going on T-model Ford. But we had, a good home. I mean, we were all born in a house except Louis. Louis was born in the hospital. And, but we were all born down there, and we all had midwives, I guess, except Louis, who went to the hospital. But I remember when Mama went to the hospital to have Louis, and Matt was left in, more or less in charge of the house. And he did some cooking. And I may think he, tried to make biscuits, but he didn't know how to brown them, so we had white biscuits. So yeah, we were all there. We used to, I guess, help out with things, like with, gathering some of the vegetables and stuff that had grown and corn. And we had I remember we had I'm trying to think of what they called it, but it was something. It had a mule. Would grind up the sugar cane, and you'd end up making syrup.
And it would go around in a circle kind of
go
deal?
Around in a circle, so you had to hook the mule up to it, and then make him walk around in the circle.
A mill.
Yeah, a mill, right? Okay.
Yeah.
And we grind it all up, and I guess strain the stuff out, and you end up making syrup. That we had. And that syrup was, tasted, I guess they call it molasses or something there. And that stuff really tasted good with biscuits. You couldn't beat it.
I noticed you have very vivid food memories.
Yeah, because Mama was a good cook. And all the stuff she made. But, And of course, I had 5 sisters, so we didn't have to, boy, we didn't have to do anything in the kitchen. The girls had to do the stuff in the kitchen.
That speaks a lot to the times too, now.
Right. But I think all of us had a good childhood. I mean, eating, we were all seemed like we were always hungry, but no food went to waste. You know, I guess everything was eaten all the time. And we had a dog that we called down there. I remember this one episode. I think we had more than one, but this one we called Nigger Babe.
I remember that dog.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I remember the name.
Yeah. And he used to get in the chicken house and get the eggs. So one time, Mama got tired of it. So she told Matt and Claude to get rid of the dog. So they took him, and there was, I forgot the name of the river, but there was a river nearby. So Claude and Matt took the dog to the river and threw him in. And came back home. By the time they got there, the dog was back home. He back. So I don't know what they thought. They must have thought, oh, throw him in the river will sweep him away or something. But I guess he knew how to swim and he knew how to get home.
So when you were down south, a lot of the cousins and the family lived close by then too.
Right. Yeah.
Out in Branchville.
Yeah.
And Orangeburg too.
Yeah, mostly Branchville. I guess Roseville, which is between Branchville and
Roseville, like that.
Yeah, right, between Branchville and Orangeburg. So I had family that lived there as well. So and that was it. I remember one time we were all out on the front porch, and some guy, white guy on a motorcycle, was going by, and he stopped his motorcycle and looked at us, and then he got off the motorcycle and pointed a gun at us, and we scattered, and he just went on. He didn't do anything. So
wow,
it's just one of those things you remember. So it's ridiculous.
I'm sorry, I have to ask this question before I forget. What did your father do when you were down south? Because I know you worked for the MTA, I believe, when you came up north.
Right.
What did he do when you were down there? Was he a farmer?
Just about everybody worked on the railroad.
Okay.
I mean, they farmed and worked on the railroad.
Okay.
So he was a railroad worker, and Uncle Coon and all of them, they were railroad workers. So, and that was it. And I don't think there was anything else. Like, I don't remember anybody like running a store or any kind of business or anything like that, but they were, worked on the railroad and they did the farming.
Okay. And your grandfather was also?
He was also a railroad worker, and I didn't know him. He died in 1934. Now, on my father's side, I didn't know either of those grandparents.
Okay.
And didn't even hear much about them. On my mother's side, my grandmother, Della, and Dave. Now he died I think about a year after I was born, so I don't remember him at all. I heard a lot about him and how he was, but but that was it. So he was, I guess tough like those other guys, other uncles and so on. I guess that came out of there. But,
you had 8 brothers and sisters, right?
Right.
Talk about them a bit. At least, what were their names?
Oh, Matthew, who we calling Massey.
And he's the oldest one?
Yeah, he's the old one. And then Elizabeth, who was they had a boy who was Matt, and got that biblical name, Matthew. And then they had Elizabeth, which is another biblical name, I guess. And then Retha came, so that was 2 girls after the boy, and then Ada, so that was 3 girls after the one boy, and then Luella, so that was 4 girls after the one boy, and then me. And so then I came along, and then after me, of course, Nathaniel, another biblical name, I think, and then Idella was named after my grandmother, and then Lewis. So
And you were named after your father.
yeah,
And obviously, everybody that knows you, at least in the family, knows you as Count or Uncle Count. And your name is actually Alexander. So I guess this is a good time to ask how did Count come about?
yeah. Well, when I was a kid, when I was little, they used to call me Daddy Rabbit.
Daddy Rabbit.
That's what I was known as down south, Daddy Rabbit.
Why?
I don't know. But, you know, everybody had a nickname. Matt, we ended up calling Massey. Elizabeth, you know, she was called Mutt. You remember that?
Right.
Retha was called B. Ada was Ada.
Yeah.
That's funny until, you know, she got Kitty later on. Luella was called Newt. And when I got a little bigger, because of Junior, they called me June. And I guess all the ones who were Junior ended up being called June. And then Nate, they used to call Donkey when he was little, maybe because of stubbornness or something. But that was his nickname, Boopy. And then Lewis didn't have one. I guess it was too late. But if you saw that chart that I made, you know, all the cousins had nicknames too. You've seen the chart, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So all the cousins had nicknames. Ting and Blanche was Boy. They used to call him Boy. And Cliff was Slick, and you know, on and on and on. So it seemed like everybody had a nickname somehow. But name Count came in a long time later when I was a teenager. We had clubs at that time, and I was in a club we called, and mostly with cousins, called the Social Lords. So everybody sort of adopted a name with that, you know, English lord kind of thing. Count and Duke and so on. And so I picked Count as a name too. Now others like Lefty, he picked Laurie. He picked Lefty. I don't know how that was a lordish kind of sounding name. And his brother Richard, he picked Chico. But anyway, those names stuck.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah, the name Lefty, Chico.
And that came from a club.
Yeah, it came from the club called the Social Lord, so that was pretty good. That's what everybody knows. So I went from June to Count, and then I guess that was better than June, so it kind of stuck, because even Mama started calling me that.
Yeah.
So that was something. Nate got rid of his nickname fast.
That was a hard. Yeah, that would have been a hard one to live with. You know, General Donkey. Yeah, I don't think it would work.